War Secretary Pete Hegseth has asked the Army Chief of Staff to step down and take immediate retirement. General Randy George has held the position since August of 2023. Senior U.S. Army official and senior War Department official confirmed the move to Fox News. George's ouster is the latest of more than a dozen firings of top generals and admirals since Secretary Hegseth took office last year.
Welcome to Dr. John Podcast Show. So what is happening right now? The Trump administration has fired 13 top military officials in the middle of an active war, a move that has stunned defense experts because you don't reshuffle military leadership during combat unless something is catastrophically broken at the top. At the center of this story is General Randy George.
Megan Fitzpatrick, I also want to talk about an extraordinary move happening in wartime. The Secretary of War essentially removing the top U.S. Army general. Why would Hegseth want that general gone?
Yeah, and this is more surprising news that he has been essentially fired, more surprising than the Bondi news. I mean, it's General Randy George that we're talking about here, and he's basically been told to retire, it sounds like, early. This is what the Pentagon is saying, that he'll be retiring effective immediately. It is extraordinary timing that this decision would be made given that the U.S. is at war with Iran. Why they're doing this, they're not really sharing the reasons publicly, David. There is some reporting by U.S. media outlets like CBS News quoting a source that simply said it was time for a leadership change in the Army.
He was the Army's top general, the Chief of Staff of the United States Army, a career military officer with decades of experience. And he was pushed out early, along with other senior leaders, as part of a broader shakeup inside the Pentagon. The official reason? There is not one. Not really. Just a vague statement about new leadership and new direction. But behind the scenes...
But again, there'll be a lot of questions about the time. Is now the time, given they're in the midst of the war? A spokesperson for the Pentagon, Sean Parnell, writing on social media that the Department of War is grateful for General George's decades of service to our nation. We wish him well in his retirement. General George has been in that role since 2023, and they're normally 4-year terms. There is some reporting by the Associated Press and others that he wasn't the only one that was pushed out yesterday by Hegseth, that 2 other generals were pushed out of their jobs as well. Not entirely clear who is taking over for George. There's various reports this morning about who might be stepping in, again, on an acting basis. But yeah, this is a pretty extraordinary move. Hegseth has sort of cleaned house a lot since he took his job. When he first came in, he fired quite a few senior military leaders, and that's kind of continued since then. But to do this now is certainly causing a lot of news and reaction here in Washington.
What is emerging is far more controversial and frankly astounding. Reporting indicates that Pete Hegseth did not just reshuffle leadership. He personally intervened in the military promotions process. He blocked or delayed promotions for more than a dozen senior officers. And here is the detail that should shock you. Most of the officers he blocked were women and black officers. Let me say that again. The Secretary of Defense, the man in charge of the entire United States military, is personally blocking the promotions of women and minority officers, not because of their performance, not because of their qualifications, but because of who they are. According to reports, in at least some cases, officials inside the Pentagon resisted pressure to remove minority officers from promotion lists. They pushed back. They said these officers deserved to advance based on their merit, their service, their capability. And those disputes appear to have contributed directly to the broader leadership purge. The officials who tried to do the right thing, who tried to protect the integrity of the promotions process, were targeted. They were removed. They were pushed out alongside the officers whose promotions they were defending. Officials inside the defense establishment have described these decisions in stark terms. They are warning that this risks disrupting command continuity at a critical moment during a war. You cannot fight a war effectively when you are firing your top generals in the middle of it. You cannot maintain unit cohesion when your Secretary of Defense is playing politics with military promotions. The timing is what stands out. The decisions are disgraceful on their own terms, but the fact that they are happening during an active active conflict, while American service members are in harm's way, while pilots are flying combat missions over Iran, is almost impossible to comprehend. This is what happens when you fast-track a Fox News host to overseeing the military. Pete Hegseth has no experience running an organization of this size. He has no background in combat command. He has never managed logistics for a war. He was a television personality, and now he is making life and death decisions about who leads our troops. And the results are exactly what you would expect. Now let me layer on top of the firings what happened today. U.S. military aircraft were shot down in separate incidents across Iran while conducting combat operations. A search and rescue effort is ongoing at the time of this recording. U.S. officials have confirmed that an F-15 fighter and an A-10 attack plane were lost to hostile fire. One crew member has been rescued, another is still missing. 2 Black Hawk helicopters were also hit before retreating. Think about that for a moment. 2 fixed-wing aircraft shot down, 2 helicopters damaged. American pilots and crew members in Iranian territory with 1 still unaccounted for. This is not a minor setback. This is a significant combat loss. And here is why all of this matters for the narrative coming out of the White House. Just days ago, Donald Trump stood in front of the nation and claimed that Iran's air defenses had been effectively neutralized. He said the United States had established complete dominance in the fight. He said there was practically nothing left to target. If Iran's air defenses were truly defeated, frontline U.S. fighter jets would not be getting shot down. You cannot claim dominance when your aircraft are being hit by hostile fire. You cannot claim victory when American pilots are missing behind enemy lines. This is not just a lie. It is a lie that puts service members at risk. Because when the commander-in-chief tells the country that the enemy's defenses are destroyed, when he creates an illusion of safety, it affects how missions are planned. It affects how risks are assessed. It affects the decisions made by commanders and pilots who trust that the information coming from the top is accurate. And it is not. Trump claimed the war was nearly over. He claimed Iran was eviscerated. He claimed success. And the same week those claims were made, American fighter jets were being shot out of the sky. How many more firings? How many more warnings from inside the military before Republicans grow a spine and speak up against their cult leader? Military leaders warned about escalation before the war began. They warned that Iran was not a pushover. They warned that the campaign would be costly. They were ignored. And now, despite public claims of success from the president, the reality could not be further from the truth. Instead of facing that reality, instead of acknowledging mistakes and adjusting strategy, the administration is purging anyone who dares not fall in line. General Randy George is gone. Other senior leaders are gone. The promotions of women and minority officers are being blocked. The people who tried to push back against politicization of the military are being removed. And in their place, the administration is installing loyalists who will not question orders, who will not raise uncomfortable questions, who will not tell the president when he is wrong. This is how you lose a war, not just on the battlefield, but inside the Pentagon. When you fire your best leaders, when you demoralize your officer corps, when you make promotions about politics rather than merit, you are hollowing out your own military from within. And all of this is happening as pressure builds from every direction. Falling approval ratings, internal skepticism from military and intelligence officials, visible cracks in the battlefield narrative itself. The reshuffling of leadership in the middle of all of it is so bonkers that even Fox News hosts, the professional verbal gymnasts who will spin anything in Trump's favor, cannot back it and will not. When your own propaganda network starts to hesitate, when the people whose job it is to defend you cannot find a way to spin what you are doing, you know you have a problem. The firings. 13 senior military officials removed during an active war. That is not normal. That is not how competent administrations operate. You do not change your command structure in the middle of combat unless there is a crisis of confidence at the top. And the crisis here seems to be that too many military leaders were refusing to play politics with promotions. The blocked promotions. Hegseth personally intervening to prevent women and black officers from advancing. This is not about qualifications. This is about ideology. This is about turning the military into a political tool rather than a professional fighting force. When the Secretary of Defense is more concerned with who is being promoted than with whether the war is being won, the institution is in trouble. The combat losses, F-15 shot down, A-10 shot down. Blackhawks damaged, a pilot missing. This is happening while the president is on television claiming total victory and complete air dominance. The gap between the narrative and the reality is becoming a chasm. And that gap is dangerous because it affects how the military operates and how the public understands what is at stake. The purge of dissent. Anyone who pushed back against the politicization of promotions, anyone who tried to protect the integrity of the officer corps appears to have been targeted. The message is clear: fall in line or get out. But in a military, falling in line should mean following lawful orders and executing the mission. It should not mean accepting political interference in personnel decisions. And when the people who refuse to accept that interference are fired, the institution is being corrupted. Here is what happens next if this continues. The best officers will leave. Not the ones who cannot hack it, but the ones who refuse to be part of a politicized military. The ones with options, with private sector opportunities, with the ability to walk away. They will resign. And the ones who stay will be the loyalists, the yes men, the people who put politics above professionalism. And then, when the real fighting happens, when the military is tested in combat, it will fail. Not because the troops are not brave, but because the leadership has been hollowed out, because the people making the decisions do not know what they are doing, because the people who knew better were fired or quit. That is the trajectory we are on. That is what the firings of Randy George and the other senior leaders portend. That is why defense insiders are stunned and alarmed. Trump is panicking. That is the only explanation for decisions this reckless, this counterproductive, this damaging to military effectiveness. A confident leader does not fire his top generals in the middle of a war. A confident leader does not need to purge the officer corps of anyone who might disagree with him. A confident leader can handle dissent, can handle bad news, can handle the reality that wars are messy and progress is not always linear. Trump cannot handle any of that, so he fires the messengers. He blocks the promotions of anyone who does not fit his political mold. He surrounds himself with loyalists who will tell him what he wants to hear. And then he goes on television and claims victory while American fighter jets are being shot down over Iran. This is not leadership. This is a meltdown, and it is happening in real time for everyone to see. The only question now is how much more damage will be done before someone stops it, before Congress steps in, before the military itself says enough, before the American people fully understand what is being done in their name. Until then, we watch, we report. We tell the truth about what is happening inside an administration that has lost its way, and a commander-in-chief who has lost his grip on reality. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you think about these firings. Do you believe the reports that Hegseth is blocking women and minority officers from promotion? And what does it say about Trump's leadership that he is purging the military in the middle of a war? I want to hear from you.